All right, here we go. Cool. Here we go. Another office hours. Gotta get my music started. No, I gotta say, I wish I could play my music on stream. Not my music. Music I like listening to. And I gotta say, I am ready for 10:07 mainly because I'm so happy my comp has a rep pally in it already. How's everyone doing today? I don't actually have anyone's here. Hello, anyone who's here. Oh, looks like a couple people. I think I'm gonna go ahead and pull up. I'm gonna pull up one of the keys I ran last night and look through it and just see what I can learn. Oh, that was the wrong button. No, I took a poll and people want to do a Mythic Plus walkthrough. I haven't prepared anything, but let's watch, see what I can improve on. All right. So this first poll is actually fairly massive. And my goal is to try and spell steal at least 2 of the Arcane Furies, that thing. I think I go for all 3. Yeah. I feel like 3 you start losing a little bit of value, but you can stack all 3. It's pretty wild. Hey, what's up, Catalan? AoE rotation for fire or arcane? Okay, cool. Let me pull up. Is Soup here? And this so this is my this is a short video I have this is the main AoE. Okay. Okay, my first question is, what's your haste stat? Because that's one thing that I've found has a huge impact on how good the okay. So are you having trouble with the overall damage, or like are you getting through the ramp and then that's good damage and then you just can't like keep the damage up? Or is it that the ramps are not quite going well? Okay, so if that's the case, it's actually a good thing. So if you're doing the ramps relatively well, then like this AoE ramp that I do in this video is pretty much the only one I use throughout keys. I think there's some nuances that I can't remember. It's been a little bit since I played Arcane, but this is the one that I really liked. Mainly because it's barrage damage on the 3rd and 4th stack, spark stack. But the key in keys to keeping your damage high, from what I found, is actually has a lot more to do with getting your cooldowns on cooldown, like pretty much the beginning of every trash pack. And what I mean by that is whatever cooldowns are ready, pretty much send them. Usually that's going to be, you know, either a mini ramp or, you know, a surge. But what that can be, if it's like a small pull, like a good example is like imps in Court of Stars. I like to sometimes, just depending on how cooldowns come up, but I'll send Magi into the imps, like just Magi. I'll just throw barrage and then Magi and then just AoE into that. And because you don't really have great burst for packs like that, so I find like kind of more unique applications of the cooldowns, or like combos of the cooldowns. Another example would be towards the end, like this week, this would probably be a good week for this. If you're not doing high enough keys to where you can do like your surge ramp on pull and then another mini ramp before the end of the pull, you can use Spark by itself, which, because of Harmonic Echo, the proc off of the Spark stacks, it actually turns into a pretty big AoE burst. I can show you that if you want. Yeah, that right there is because pretty much all of Arcane's cooldowns are damage modifiers, right? Rune's 40%, like Resonance is barrage damage modifier, Arcane Surge is, well, Arcane Surge is a big hit, but it's Arcane Power. Magi is kind of a damage modifier in the sense that it's like a 20% buff on whatever you cast on that target. So yeah, missing cooldowns or holding cooldowns to line them up. I'm curious on bosses, do you find yourself having a lot of downtime between ramps on either bosses or like raid bosses? Okay, so I think if that's the case, if you're having 30 seconds between like the end of a ramp of your big ramp and the beginning of your next ramp, my guess is you're waiting for all of your cooldowns to be up before you start. Yeah. So the way that Arcane plays ideally is you have to kind of lead your cooldowns. So you can cast Radiant Spark when you have 9 seconds left on Magi. And the reason for that is because, here, I'll just do a quick little dirty ramp. So this is just to demonstrate when cooldowns come back up. So you'll see Rune would kind of be coming up right now, but basically once I'm here at 10 seconds, I can cast Spark and then watch how Magi comes up right as I want to cast it. 2, 3, Nether Tempest. Boom. Barrage was up. I mean, I missed it because I was too close and I didn't cast Magi fast enough, or the barrage didn't land. But you see kind of how that works? How I started casting Rune with 10 seconds left on Magi, then it cast Spark, and then, yeah. So that right there, I'd say is like the biggest DPS gain, in that I feel like Arcane doesn't really, the damage doesn't go up and down as much as it kind of just stays high, because the amount of time between ramps is probably, I don't know, 10% of our time. It's pretty wild. But we spend most of our time in the ramp. And places where you're going to find that really punishing are going to be like second phase Razageth. Yeah, once you start leading your cooldowns like that, you'll find that everything kind of syncs back up so long as you continue to do that on cooldown. Like it ends up being on like a minute 20 timer, but it's pretty consistent. I'm gonna pull back up my call it. It was here somewhere. Video. I don't fully understand Mac yet. Oh, because it was minimized? I don't know. Doesn't matter. All right, let's watch how I did this poll. Oh, what's really funny is this is actually the 4th time that we did this poll in very quick succession, because we had a 23 and we got almost to the second boss and we just didn't have enough time left because it was ridiculous. And then we did another 23, which I scuffed like crazy. And then we did another 22, which we immediately scuffed. So this was round 4 and It went pretty well. See how many stacks of Mystic Vapors I get. Because that's one thing that I get super excited during Double Lust is fire. And I tunnel a bit still. Yeah, so the AoE doesn't have so much of that continuous thing as much as it is I think getting the most value out of every use of cooldowns. And that comes down to decisions like you know, do you need to do like a prio single target Magi ramp because something's dangerous, or waiting for like choosing your target to cleave off of? That's a big one, actually. So have you noticed that Barrage doesn't like to cleave? Like, is that a feature, not a bug of Arcane that you've stumbled upon? Okay, so that might be where you're losing some damage. Well, first of all, I want to make sure you are taking the resonance talent, correct? Because I have seen that before. And I just want to make sure. And well, resonance and arcane cleave. Sorry, arcane cleave is the talent that somebody didn't take. So okay, cool. So Barrage, it cleaves off of the center of the hitbox. It's not entirely the center of the hitbox, but here, let me pull up. Okay, so like on Razageth, I opted to stop even trying to fit Barrage into Magi when I'm like in melee range, which I do try to do at the end of Magi. And instead I just did the Presence of Mind to Arcane Blast at the end of Magi, because if you notice, so here comes the Barrage. I send the Barrage out, and I think it's about here. Edge of the hitbox is, I should probably point with my mouse. Sorry, you see about here? And the edge of the hitbox is right over here. Right? So, it's not actually going to hit. Hasn't hit yet. There we go. Now it hit. Right? So, it doesn't hit until it hit about his spine and his neck. But your 40 yards is determined off the edge of this hitbox. So really big hitboxes or enemies that are moving or things like that, basically the cleave distance of Barrage is determined off that spot right in the center. So for really big hitboxes, I've noticed there could be an ad sitting right here and it might not cleave. An example of that is like Senarth. I didn't even bother going Arcane Cleave on that fight because it literally never ever cleaved. So what that means in keys basically is you want to try to look for high health melee targets that are not going to be like CC'd, that'll keep up with the tank, that don't like stop and channel, stuff like that. Because you want your Magi target and all of your barrages to cleave as much as possible. So sometimes that'll be like, say you're ramping a spark ramp, right? Or like a surge ramp. And you get to that last spark stack, or you're about to throw out the first barrage, whatever stack you're at, you're about to throw out the first barrage into Magi. If your target looks like it's maybe 2-3 yards away from being able to like guaranteed cleave with barrage, it's worth holding the global in my opinion, because that could be an additional 60%. that is one of the more like finicky nuances. I would say that getting in a habit of making sure you're not holding your cooldowns, making sure that, you know, I probably use Spark by itself more often than I realize. Especially because it used to not benefit from shifting power cooldown reduction, but it does now. So it's up even more often. But definitely, like, whatever cooldowns you have ready to send, I think is a good rule of thumb to try and, like, just send those on pull. Like, towards the end of the pull, start prepping. And you can actually find that in my Discord. I'll show you, but I have a screenshot of it in my Discord of all my talent builds. So this is... yeah, that. Yeah, it's really easy to get. It's really easy to get in the hat. Oh, another thing, very important. Try to run in with the tank and start your ramp as soon as you get into combat. And what I like, if you haven't prepped 20 Arcane Harmony stacks, that's fine, right? Even more so than that, if you have no charges and no stacks, I still think it's a good idea to go into your ramp like that and just go. Just send it. Because getting stuff on cooldown is generally way more important than having things like perfectly prepped or, you know, that was another thing I forgot to mention. But yeah, the only thing that changes with my build between content is I take this in an AoE, so Primalist Council and then keys. And then in pretty much every raid fight, I take this. And then like Taros, Senearth, and then I guess I wouldn't have taken this on Broodkeeper had I been in. But generally it's for cleave, like single target priority cleave is these two talents. Single target only is these two talents. And then AoE for keys is going to be these two. Yeah, well, so for the first pull, especially when you have double lust, I would say you do have time to build up, but it's more so about towards the end of every pull, you want to try and essentially when things get into execute range, you want to try to start pooling your 4 charges and 20 stacks so you can just go straight into a ramp on the next pull. It's more about not wanting to start a ramp in the middle of a pull, because the likelihood that you're going to get big value, you know, once you hit Spark, you have 9 seconds or about 10 seconds until Magi. And then you have, or in AoE, it's a little faster. I think you have like 6 seconds till Magi. And then you have 10 seconds of Magi before that pops, right? So it's more about just making sure you're getting the ramp started as soon as you can and trying to like, that's the higher priority over being perfectly prepped. So you need to try to like prep outside of that, because keeping those cooldowns rolling is what keeps your damage high. Good, I'm glad. Because Arcane was a bit stressful for me for like 2-3 weeks. And I have the time to really study it. It was a complicated, it has a solid learning curve. Yeah, fire's on the, are you saying time for you to change fire or time for me to start talking about fire? I do. I mean, I've made that swap. I do really enjoy Arcane, but fire is on the rise. Like if you look at, so this is the overall and the key that I have the video pulled up in. And I'm not sure if there's more value from fire, but in a practical sense, because the damage is so much easier to get at. Well, I say so much easier. Combustion has a pretty intense learning curve as well, muscle memory wise, because of the whole fire blast while you're casting thing. And during high haste, it gets really hectic. But once you get that muscle memory down, fire is entirely mobile. Like you can pretty much stay in your rune most of the time with just constant movement. And then ice flows on top of that for hard cast pyros. Once we get a little bit more haste and secondaries, things are gonna get interesting for fire. Because I have had some interesting, like, check out this damage. I mean, it's the tree boss, so it's Fire Mage Dream, but I love it. and Fire Mage, like, especially if you're pugging keys, I would say fire has, because it has the same damage or similar damage profile as Arcane with the burst. Yeah, this is the first boss in AA. This is the tree. Yeah, this is just a boss fight, not overall. I'm not doing that kind of overall. I think the best overall I've gotten close to right now is like one. How was I doing on? Oh, this has some other stuff in it. I think closest to, or the highest overall I've gotten is like 110 or something. But yeah, this is just because Ignite is insane. I love it. I mean, in all fairness, I got a pretty solid amount of lucky RNG. Do you have this helm, by the way? Because I think this helm on that fight is insane. I'm kind of just realizing this right now. Let's see. See what my uptime was on that. I had 70% uptime on the haste buff. Okay, that explains it. Look at that. That's awesome. It makes a lot of sense now. But yeah, I've gotten very, very lucky. I need to switch crit to mastery on this and figure something out. Yeah, I got this a couple weeks ago and I'm pretty happy with it. What it does is it makes it feel like my downtime for generating SKB stacks on pulls where I just don't have anything, it feels a lot better. It just takes a little bit of the edge off. Yeah, I think we also have 3 icons in my group. So I think we have tank, healer, and yeah, you said you had 24 haste and 31 mastery. You're actually already good to go for fire. Like, because this amount of mastery isn't actually, I think I have 28 mastery as Arcane. I'm not gonna, I think it's around 28, so. Mainly just dropping some crit. For me anyways. Yeah, you're if you look, that's about where I'm at. Like almost exactly. So definitely drop crit because fire just doesn't benefit from crit as much as it seems like it would. Because it doesn't really start gaining huge value from getting more crits until you get like 70% plus crit, which is impossible. I need to figure out a different trinket than this one though, because I have this, but I hate it. I absolutely hate it. Let me show you why. Unless have you used the Horn of Valor at all? Because it's hilariously dumb. Okay, so it is a good trinket. It's a lot of main stat, but it yeah, I don't know exactly what trinkets I want for fire. Anyways, let me show you what Halls of Valor does, or not Halls of Valor, Horn of Valor. So it transforms you, and I don't know if you can tell, but like it's not responding the same, like in time with the global. Like the hot streaks are taking a while to go out, and like the weird casting animations of this Vicryl. I don't know how to pronounce that. It like slows down enough to where you'll cast a pyro and you'll think that it's cast, and then you'll hit Fire Blast and it won't do anything. It'll be like you Fire Blasted with a hot streak still. Very annoying. Oh, I'm curious, by the way, do you use ice flows or shimmer? I've been using ice flows ever since Dragonflight came out, so I'm always curious what people gravitate towards. I've actually been using it so much that like I hesitate going back to shimmer because my muscle memory is very ingrained. If you haven't given ice flows a try with Arcane, I would suggest it. It used to be buggy. Not a thing anymore. Here's the big thing that I really like about ice flows, right? So say you have a mechanic. I'll just explain it. So say like on Kurog, there's a mechanic where the whole raid has to stack up, and then only like 4 or 5 people get something where they have to run out to the right and everybody else runs left, right? So what I like to do is while we're running up, I'll drop my rune over here, and then I'll go here. So if I don't get it, I run this way and I'm well clear and I'm still in my room. So it's like I've kind of gotten addicted to being able to make those little minor movement adjustments. But blink on the global does take a little bit to get used to. I also love being able to blink out of stuff like the Ancient Tender in AV. That stun, you can blink out of it. I mean, it's always a good idea to sim it. That you had Shadow Gem. So feather absolutely is a good call. And yeah, I would sim it, but that's crit just isn't great. That's just my main hesitancy of saying that Eye of Scovald is a good idea, because it is a lot of crit. But I think it does decent damage on the proc. Let's pull up actually pull up Mage Hub. It's always a good place to reference. Fire crickets. Okay, Rage Feather, yeah, absolutely. This is off of Raz, I believe. Idol of the Dreamer. I don't actually know what Idol of the Dreamer is. Yeah, absolutely. That's the this is the main mage hub that Toe Grinder, if you're familiar with him, he's like one of the main people that does all of the crazy sim work and like APL stuff. He maintains this website. Very, very, very good. This is actually where I start. I like to start because he has a lot of good things that break down the fundamentals in text format. I'm more of a visual learner myself, but I do like the Sims. And then, like I said, it's always a good idea to just sim yourself. It does seem like the Desperate Invoker's Codex. I'm just waiting to hopefully get one in my weekly. Oh, but I didn't actually realize that. Oh wait, this is Arcane. I'm dumb. Fire? Okay. I was about to say Breaching Talon was good, but no, it's not. So yeah, Desperate Invokers seems to be... I don't know what Idol of the Dreamer is. Conjured Chill Globe, that's interesting. Home of Unstable Power, that's SBG, I think, right? No. I hate that trinket on first read. I heard it was a Rune of Power, but I don't understand how you make sure you get the buff. That trinket sounds like a nightmare. Which is why I ended up with Horn of Valor earlier. Yeah, it seems like that's really the only good option. Idol of the Dreamer, for whatever reason, feels like that's like a world quest or something. I don't remember where that comes from. Yeah, based on the list, it looks like Eye of Scovald is a decent option on the way down. So Rage Feather and Scovald would probably be a chill way to play. You don't have a trinket to worry about. And then, yeah, try to farm. Because everything else, like if you have a good icon, then that and Rage Feather. Actually, I might be swapping to Rage Feather based on looking at these. Interesting. I do find it interesting that Fire is not benefiting from the main stat stuff as much. Usually it's like anything main stat is really, really strong for Fire. Cool. Yeah, so I think that probably thoroughly answers your question. Yeah. It is pretty nutty. Actually, let's see. Let's look at how fire mages are faring. That's interesting. Okay, this might be an example of my like favorite thing ever. Look, like Frost fight, fire fight, arcane fight. Mage is in just a really cool place right now. Let's see what I yeah, this makes me really happy. It does also tell me that fire is probably going to get nutty. Let's see. Idol of the Dreamer. Where does that come from? Honestly, learning all the specs is the best thing you can do, because then whatever's good, you're good. That once I finally pulled that trigger, like Arcane was the trickier one to learn, but it feels a lot better going into a tier thinking, okay, what am I going to play, instead of shit, I really hope that X isn't what I have to play. Oh, is that what it is? Okay. Interesting. Yeah, no, I can actually see why that's really good. And it scales with how many gems you have. I can definitely see that being... Oh wait, and it procs twice per minute and it's 15-second buff? I can definitely see that being good. Of course, that comes with having to level jewel crafting. It looks like one person's using gem, but... You know, seeing as many instances of double passive trinkets on fire mages as I am, I think I'm switching to Rage Feather and Icon. Raid bot sims, the top gear. Yes, so you can do a Droptimizer sim. I don't think I have Raid bots premium anymore. I don't know if it'll let me do this. But if you're not familiar with simming your character, you need to download the SimCraft add-on. Let me see. Yeah, just that one, and you can type /simseat. Get that, and then load it into Raid bots. And what the Droptimizer does is it gives you the ability to choose, okay, I'm farming keys, I'm farming whatever. Oh, snap, really? Okay, so maybe it... Well, I doubt the Sims actually take that into consideration, but that's interesting that you can abuse that. It's kind of cool, actually. I doubt it'll last long. Blizzard seems pretty on to stuff these days. But yeah, so what you can do with this, let's do just a simple, straightforward one boss, minutes. Let's see if I farm... Well, let's look what I need to get in my vault. Oh. Not allowed to sim all dungeons if you don't have raid bots premium, but this is essentially the process of finding out. Let's do just one dungeon. I guess I could probably just go back to an old one and show you. So this is an old Droptimizer sim that I don't know what else I was going to say about that. This is just what it is. So this gives you like a list of things you want to target, dungeons you want to run, stuff like that. I will say though that as your stats change, like upgrades become relative primarily, like as your item level goes up, because secondaries shift around and whatnot. So top gear simming comparatively between whatever items you have available is usually your best option. And you have a lot of flexibility in here of, I haven't messed with this, but I know like, where's my, so like my Rage Feather, I could upgrade this to 415 and then compare it to what I currently have here. Actually, let's find out. Hurricane or fire? Fire. Yeah, so that's essentially the process. And then other than that, you can just look through the dungeon journal and see what gear you have, see what gear is available, and kind of use your secondary stats as a way to like focus what gear you want next. Oh, interesting. I guess I did already sim it, but I think this was 3 minutes. That's why. Or it might be why. Yeah, so when I do top gear sims for like gear, I think it's been a while since I've been simming anything but trinkets, but I like to look at like why is it telling me to change that? Like why is it having me go from haste verse to crit mastery? So clearly I need more crit and mastery and I need less of either haste or verse. So that'll help me kind of make a decision. Okay, I have a really verse heavy ring and it just told me to get rid of verse. Maybe I should look for a ring that like swaps to some lower verse, or then you can like go to the Droptimizer and maybe target a dungeon and kind of go from there. But I generally like to use secondary stats as my guideline. Beer back real quick. All right. All right, let's see what this top gear says. I don't know if I've simmed 5 minutes for one target on these trinkets. Oh, did I even sim it against Horn of Valor? Oh, I did. Ha! Sold. The idea of using 2 passive trinkets for fire is actually kind of amazing. Oh, the guy's in here. That makes me very happy. But that's rarely ever a thing. Especially because I learned fire back in 8.3, where I started having to do font and PvP trinkets. Not even sure I've never used a feather. I don't fully understand the Oh. Okay, now I get why it gains so much value in AoE. I thought it like jumped. It kind of resets the ICD, or it does. Something dies with it. It's kind of cool. I mean, not gameable, but still cool. Ugh, now I need more haste. Does anyone want to see me scuff one of my 23s? Oh, yeah, sure. I mean, thankfully, fire AoE is really just single target right now. Or just in general. So you want to pick whatever the highest health target is, because you ideally never want to swap targets. And actually on that, macros that I think are important or very helpful for fire are things like, set your focus with mouse over so you don't have to change targets and have that hotkeyed. I don't know if that's a macro. I think you can do that in the key bindings window. But also mouse over scorch and focus scorch. And the reason for that is because as things die, right, if they're lower health mobs, because you're targeting the high health one, you don't have to change your target, so you can scorch off of nameplates, right? And you can use that to fish for crits, which makes keeping your field of burn up throughout a pull a little bit easier. But okay, so the AoE rotation pretty much falls into during main combustion. I generate 7 SKB stacks, and then I'll cast rune, shifting, and go into that SKB proc. So I get to 3 field of burn. I'm gambling a little bit on this Pyroclasm proc because early Pyroclasm procs kind of feel like they slow everything down a lot. And I just won the gamble because it refreshed, right? So now I'm keeping field of burn up and casting another. I did just cast Fire Blast during this, even though it didn't convert a hot streak, but I did that to keep field of burn at 3. Yeah, that is a fairly typical AoE rotation. And like I said, what's amazing about it is that's just the single target rotation. Let's see. There is some nuance in AoE that I think is important to be aware of with the Ignite Bank that I've been learning about recently. Where I've just been kind of trying to be more aware of my Ignite Bank. And for example, you don't want to kill your target with a Pyroclasm, right? Because then that Ignite dies with your target. And I'm in a bad habit of doing stuff like that. So you want to try to swap. Like if your target's getting close to dying, you want to try to swap right after Fire Blast. I think. I mean, this is just theory crafting out loud or thinking out loud about it. But something I've started doing recently is like Fire Blast, and then I'll switch to the next high health target and just start, keep going from there. And it seems to make a little bit of a difference. Or like, Ignite takes 9 seconds to tick out, and you want to try to time. It's almost like a Magi pop a little bit. You want to try to time your big Ignite to spread when everything groups up, and it's almost like timing Magi with Barrage, or Magi and Barrage with like things grouping up for Cleave. Here, I'll show you real quick. This is a rotation that I do. This is like the old Flame Strike rotation. And in a situation like Imps and Court of Stars, this is a rotation, a combustion rotation that I could do. Just because there isn't a target high enough. And again, this is not like a thing I do most of the time or hardly ever, but really niche things where, like, if you have an SKB proc on the spider packs, the really tiny spider packs, the minions in SPG, that's a good way to use it. Just because if you send a pyro into your target, it's just going to die. All right. Are there any final questions before I wrap up this office hours? I actually have a question. Would you want like more in detail like walkthroughs on keys? I'm kind of just doing whatever people want to hear or whatever people are curious about. But I'm open to kind of thinking out loud about how I go over stuff. Actually, this is probably a better way to put it. If there's anything that you'd like to request, leave it in a comment. Join my Discord. Let me know. Because those types of requests help me out quite a bit. All right, cool. I think I'm going to go ahead and wrap up this office hour stream. I appreciate everybody coming by to kick it. I hope you learned something. And if you did and you appreciate what I'm doing here, please consider contributing with super thanks. I just opened memberships. They're only $2.99. It's a little cheaper than Twitch. But yeah, oh, let's see. Let's say topics where fire breath. Are you talking about Alex Strauss's Fury? Or no, are you talking about Dragon's Breath? Like using it as DPS? Ah, yeah, I thank you for saying that. I will keep that in mind. Another thing I think would probably be really helpful, you can tell me, would be like things you need to spell steal. Things you got to pay attention to and like, yeah. Okay, cool. Yeah, I mean, I guess really that's more like AoE/CC, right? Like in AV. See, do I have that pulled up still? No, I don't. Like in AV, the Mystic Vapors. What if you can get them all synced up? Yeah. Okay, cool. Thank you. I appreciate that input. I really do. But yeah. Yeah, no, definitely. I mean, that's exactly what I'm trying to what I'm trying to get to. So thank you. But yeah, thanks everyone for kicking it. And yeah, I'll catch you next week during office hours. Have a good one.